Hey, Christy, are you back with us?
I am. I just totally glitched. Sorry about
No
that.
worries. We lost your PowerPoint. If you pull that back up, I think we're ready to go. While we're getting that, I'll welcome everybody today. I think you kind of had, if you've been here before, you know the SharePoint webinars to highlight new features that Microsoft is rolling out. We're recording this webinar. We'll put it into your Learning Center afterwards with all the different documentation that you might see in examples here today. But what I really wanted to do is make you aware. We're going to do a special. Webinar next month, and each month we try to highlight, again, probably 4, 5, 6 different features. We try to make some of those technical, maybe for IT folks, but we try to keep a lot of that for your general business users for features that are rolling out. Next month, we're going to do something a little different, and we're going to highlight probably 20 different features. This is for business users only. It's for your content owners, anybody that's managing an area or their site. I promise you, you will walk away with things that are right there in the browser, in the list, in the document libraries that you're going to go, oh my goodness, that makes my life a lot easier. We've got a good one planned for you next month in April. And that webinar, I would just say, we'll send out an invitation, but any of your content owners, I'm going to say all users, really, it will be focused for that type of user, and this should be fun. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christy Dahlbeck. She's going to be your moderator today, kind of give you an overview of some of what we're doing here, and then introduce our speakers.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome. Yep, I'm Christy Dahlbeck, and I am happy to serve as your moderator today. We do have some tips, tricks, and tools that we do hope that you find valuable and might make your workday just a little bit easier. So today we're going to hear from Christian as he covers the topics of site limits for SharePoint lists and libraries, and then also how to use the sign language view in Microsoft Teams. Then we're going to hear from Rick regarding OneDrive, the updated files on demand setting, and then Dylan's going to demonstrate for us the custom list view inline editing. Now we do have a few instructions and reminders before we get started. Your mics are muted during the presentation, although we do want to encourage you to go ahead and use that chat pane for any questions you might have. If we can pause and answer live, we'll be happy to do that. If not, we'll answer in that chat pane as well. And then at the end of the webinar, we are going to have a live Q&A session. So if you're able to stick around, we hope that you do join us for that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I have the honor to introduce to you our first presenter, Christian Lamont. Over to you, Christian.
All righty, welcome everyone. Yep, today I'll start off with covering the idea of the new site limits for SharePoint Online lists and libraries. So for those who maybe were unaware, in Microsoft service descriptions, they used to say along the lines of there was a limit to 2,000 lists and libraries combined per site collection, including the main site and any subsites. So Microsoft is now doing an update to how limits are going to work. So previously it was a soft limit, so you could still actually technically exceed that. However, they would just voice against it. Moving forward, starting last month, and then presumably by the end of April, air quotes, this will be fully deployed out, which will be Microsoft will be for 2,000. So, sorry, let me start over again. Microsoft will be enforcing a limit of 2,000 lists and libraries independently at the root site and at the subsite level. So for instance, a site collection could have 2,000 subsites, including the main site, and then each subsite, including the main site, is limited to 2,000 lists and libraries, including the hidden ones on the back end / the default out of the box ones. So again, you could previously have a total of 2,000 across the board, but now you can have more. However, Microsoft is now actually going to put a limitation on that. So once you exceed that, you will now get an error message that we can see here. That will be a sorry along the line, something went wrong. This site already contains the max number of lists and libraries allowed. So again, if you are currently on a site that has exceeded that limit, you will just start getting this message moving forward. It will not delete or remove any of your lists or libraries. You just cannot continue to add additional lists and libraries to your site. So it's kind of a double thing where they're going to say, hey, you can have more per site collection realistically. However, you cannot exceed the number now like you used to be able to do previously in the past. Again, like I said before, this started out in February of this year, and then presumably enforced completely by late April. So again, between now and the end of next month, you should start seeing this if your organization has sites or subsites that are getting close to that 2,000 item threshold. So just be mindful of all that. Again, the service description as of this moment has not been updated. So again, if we show the service description page in Microsoft Online, you can see it still says this old message. Again, this will be updated presumably once they have fully pushed out the updates across the board. So that kind of covers that idea. I just wanted to let you guys be aware of this limitation coming forward and for your organization to potentially prep for that. Next thing that I'm going to be discussing today will be the sign language view for Microsoft Teams. So a new meeting experience for Microsoft Teams that helps signers, people who are deaf or hard of hearing, interpreters, and others who use sign language to keep one another prioritized on center stage in a consistent location throughout a meeting. Targeting the common scenario where a deaf or hard-hearing person participant is working with one or more interpreters in a meeting, the sign language view provides more predictable way to keep up to 2 signers visible at all times. So again, if by chance somebody starts to share the screen previously, my image might be a little small one up in the top hand side of the page. Now with the sign language view controller, you can have large pieces of real estate being consumed up by those signers. So then those viewers can always get those interpreters to be present on their screen. So just to kind of show this image a little bit more blown up for us. This is going to be kind of an example of how it will be. Again, if in this demo here, there was a screen share that was happening, the interpreters would be moved to the right side of the page while the screen share would appear on the left side of the page. So that, again, there are always going to be kind of a large piece of real estate available to anyone who needs to have signers. Now, again, this feature is going to be kind of per user basis. So which means that if somebody says there's going to be a signer in a meeting, it will be assigned directly to the user who says, this is the signer that I wish to have. Just to kind of run through how this is deployed. If you have any members of your organization, if you go to your Teams app itself, so let's say we go here and we go to the ellipsis and we go to settings. There's going to be underneath accessibility, sign language prioritization. So if you wish to enable sign language, you can go ahead and click on this record here, and you can start adding additional signers. Now, let's say your organization doesn't have any signers, but you're going to be joining a meeting that does have signers on that side. If you go to a meeting that you have going on, there will be a little ellipsis next to any of the users you wish to have. And again, you need to make sure that enable signers is kind of enabled on your side. If you click on the little ellipsis next to their name, there's going to be a make signer. So when we click on this, now we have a little icon next to the user's name. So let me see if I can see Gabe on my screen real quick. We do not see Gabe. Let's do Dylan real fast as well. So we make anybody a signer. There's a little icon that's going to appear on their side, which means that anytime that they are sharing their camera, they will have a large piece of real estate. Again, as we can see here, Dylan's not going to be taking up a large piece of real estate on my screen because as of right now, Dylan is not sharing his screen. Again, you can use this for anybody inside of a meeting. So if there's our external users, I can go ahead and make other members who are not part of my organization a signer, so I get the benefit of it as an attendee. So that concludes kind of this new feature that is inside of Microsoft Teams. Again, kind of maybe a use case would be maybe ADA compliance. So again, if you needed to have any sort of disability compliance, so your organization does have the capability to cater to them if need be. So that concludes my section. I'll go ahead and pass it back on to you, Christy, and thank you for your time, guys.
Wonderful. Thanks, Christian. Now we're going to hear from Rick Toner. Go ahead, take it away, Rick.
Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about share my screen. There we go. I just wanted to take that. So today we're going to be talking about OneDrive and the updates that they're doing on the on-demand settings. They're nice for an improvement on the way that they're showing things, but we just want to make sure we actually understand what OneDrive is, and we're going to talk a little bit about some terms that you may have heard, and it may be a little bit confusing. So first one is OneDrive Online. So I like to consider OneDrive Online is a good way to think of it's a cloud solution. So what it really is it would be if you go up to Share or Microsoft 365 and you go up there and look, that's your OneDrive. That's where all your files are stored that you can get to in multiple locations. Um, OneDrive client, that's that little agent or that executable that runs in the corner, that little blue icon that you have that lets you actually synchronize files to your local system so that they're kind of like a file share used to be, and that you have the ability to see files on your computer without going to SharePoint Online or to your OneDrive Online areas that you have available. The other is we're talking about is that there's policies. So policies are something that your organization can actually deploy to make it that this setting can be deployed. So your information technology team can actually make it that the on-demand setting is on or off for everybody. So those are things that this can be affected by any of those ways when we're talking about this file on demand. You can change it, or they'll be able to change it. I'm going to show you the current setting, and then I'm going to show you the new setting that is getting deployed. So why do you need an on-demand on your Windows? Well, in the past, it used to be that we had things like Microsoft Surface devices, and still do. And Microsoft, when they first came out with it, was finding that they have, thin clients that didn't have a lot of storage. So Microsoft made it that you could use OneDrive, and you could actually have it that only your files, as you clicked on them, they would download to your computer, and then they would be used on your computer and synchronized. And then afterwards, you could actually remove them from your computer, save storage. This is the files on demand has been doing that for years, but it's just a capability some people don't know about. They just have the files on there and they don't know the difference on them. So the one thing that's happened is it used to be a toggle switch, and now what it's gone to is two buttons, and the buttons are different, and they're good in some ways. I think you'll find it's the same as a toggle with a little bit more information that's very, very helpful. So when is this expected to happen? So we're in mid-March right now, and it's supposed to deploy as of right now. Originally, it was supposed to be in February, and now it's March, and they said it should be rolled out completely to everybody by late April's or early April's, what they're saying. So hopefully, in the next few weeks, everybody will see it. I'm actually trying. I've been trying to get it and haven't even got it myself, so I'm not even able to see it. But I have screenshots of it. I'll show you. How does this affect your organization? There won't be a change for anybody that actually has their on demand. But if you go to disable it or change it, you'll see on your screen the ability to see how much storage is there. So we'll talk. Let's talk about the uh, why do you need on-demand files? Like I said, the one thing is that you may actually have uh, low storage on your laptop or something like that. You don't want to take up a lot of space, so you can actually free up your local space on your drive and just need the files that you need. Another thing is clients are going to the point now that Microsoft 365 really is a great solution for even file shares. So these big file shares that people used to have with their P drive and everything else, the great thing is when you're in the office or you're on a VPN, you can get to these files. But when you step away from your office, you don't have the ability to get to these files, which there are decisions sometimes you need to be able to see files. Well, the files on demand makes it that that the or not the files on demand, but these file shares being migrated to Microsoft 365 has made it that all these files, you may have 500 gig in one document library. Well, if you have all files downloading to your system and then you turn around and you sync that drive, instead of being a linked drive that you normally had a shared drive, it's actually downloading it to your system. So we want to try to avoid that kind of stuff by having the files on demand if you're doing this. So that's where I would say it's really good. And when you're not, connected to a network, it really works well to actually have those files. So when do you want to make sure you have your files on demand? Like I said, right here, it's when you're traveling, you need access to these files, but you don't have internet access. And the other thing is, if you actually are offline at that point, whenever you connect back to your network or to the internet, it'll actually synchronize these files back up online, and you'll actually have them with everybody else being able to see them or back in your cloud storage. So at this point, I'm going to actually show you some different pieces of this. Um, stop that so we can get to the windows. So the first thing I want to talk about, we talked about, you know, the different areas of being OneDrive Online. So this is your OneDrive Online, which you can get to, of course, by hitting your little waffle menu and hitting OneDrive. That'll bring up the files that you have in your, like your My Documents and things like that. And if I look at my files right here, you can see this is what My Documents or my OneDrive will actually have. I'll show you the client in a second, but I just want to let you see that it's up here. And then also besides that, we have the ability to see things like that are in SharePoint. So all these document libraries, we can turn around on any of these, open them. So I've got one open right here, and I can click the sync button and it'll actually download to my system. So I'm going to hit the sync on this particular one. It's going to open. So now I have an additional document library that's actually going to download locally to my system, or it's going to be, it's on demand, but it's actually going to have the ability for me to work on it without being inside SharePoint. So let's actually look at the windows and how you would see this kind of thing. So right here, I've got my different OneDrive. So I've got my dataBridge, which is normally your SharePoint site that you're going to have. I've got my personal OneDrive here, and then I've got our business OneDrive right here. I'll go into my business, and you can see these are the files that I had. You'll see there's different icons on here. So these are things like the cloud is that nothing lives local to your system, that everything is, we're not dealing with synchronization, anything, it's all online. But we can actually see that it looks like it's here, but it really isn't. So that's the other one with the green check mark, that's saying, hey, we've got, you know, it's synchronizing. There's some files here, but maybe not all files are here. But then we can also have some like a green one, and I'll show you that right here. So over here, if I turn around with this, right click on it, and if I say, so on your right click menu, when you're in your OneDrive, you can see right here that we have, it says always keep these files on my device. At that point, it's synchronizing every time a file changes, but it does keep the files local to your system so that if you are offline, you can get to it. So that's your that's that one. And then right here, this is the file that or the folder that I just turned around from SharePoint and just pulled all these files down. You can see they're all cloud, but they are actually available to me so that if I actually open one, it would actually take the file. And if I do that, as you can see right here, it just turned it to a check mark. So it's now available. Like I said, that's if you're downloaded. If I want to free it up, I just do free up space. And you'll see that synchronizes and goes away. So let's see this on-demand setting that we were talking about. And if I go in here into settings, I'm going to show you what I have, and then I'm going to show you what's coming. So this is what we currently have. This is that on demand. You can do on and off. So right now I've got the on demand on. I don't want to turn it off because I do have so many files that would actually download. The bad part is I don't know what that is right now, but let's show you what's about to come. So again, this is my screen actually, like I said, but if we go to what Microsoft's coming with, right down here, the really cool thing is, so instead of having a button, they did it this way because of one major piece, which is down here. It'll tell you this will take up 968 megabytes. So if you do download all files, this is going to tell you how much files are actually going to be downloaded to your system. So that's something we don't currently have. You're just guessing on what you actually are going to have available, but this will actually tell you, hey, I'm bringing all these files down to my system. But it really is like the toggle. They just put buttons on here that you can switch back to the on demand by going here. This setting, like I said, is going to be something that's getting rolled out. You may see it in the next day. You may have it today, actually, but in the near future, everybody's going to have this, and you'll get a little surprising thing that tells you how much content you have. Now, understand that number could be your OneDrive and your SharePoint thing. So that could be a much larger number. That could be terabytes or a terabyte and a half or something like that. You know, it could be a large number, but we want to keep the files, if possible, online and not on our system so we don't need them. So let me show you. I showed you that, and let's talk about another one in here real quick. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go to the famous thing, which is in here, I want to stop syncing. So you'll see at times, it's just another little, a little freebie you get on here, but a little tidbit. But right here, if I go back and you notice there's that bridge templates I had, now there's no files in it because I just unsynced and all it has is the folder. There's no icon next to it. So that'll show you if you're not actually syncing a folder and you think you were or something. So that's there. And I think I've covered everything. Let me go back and look real quick about, so this is the folder like I talked about. This is the agent. That's what we're talking about down here. And like I said, it will change on here soon. You should start seeing it. Like I said, another little trick if you didn't know is that is your SharePoint site going to be the one that has the name of whatever your site is, and then these are your personals. So I think I've covered everything at this point. So I will hand this back over to Christy.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Rick. Now we're going to hear from Dylan Skinner. So over to you, Dylan.
Hello, everyone. I'll just share my screen here. Yeah, so in today's presentation, you'll learn about one of the newer additions to SharePoint Online that will enable the ability to edit fields directly from a view without actually having to open the form itself or switch to the grid view. So the purpose of the functionality would be in certain scenarios, it could enhance their users' experience and the productivity, since it allows for quick updates of the content, without having to open, your form or anything like that. So where this might be applicable to you might be for something like if you have a dashboard type deal or views for your pending tasks or approvals, or documents that have tags, like document type or department tags, expiration tags, and just right from whatever view that you like to use without having to figure out how to open that item, we'll just make that field editable that you're always changing. So that's the idea of increasing the productivity side of things. But before I go further and show you this example, I'll just define a few of the terms that I'm referring to. So JSON, which is what has given us the ability to do this, it is a programming language. And in SharePoint, context of SharePoint, it's how we can do things like conditional formatting, apply different styling, and custom actions to the columns and views. So maybe this would fall more under that custom action. And then when I'm saying inline, the inline edit field, which I was talking about a second ago there, that's just that ability to change a field's value, in what would traditionally be like a read-only view, instead of having to open the form or just making it, editable wherever it appears. And then list view, so that's just that whatever presentation you have of that content, or whatever presentation you want to have of that content, whatever columns, fields you want to see, that's what the list views are. So I'll show you a couple different views that I've set up, presenting my data in different ways. And then you probably have some different kind of views for some of your listen libraries. And then grid view, which I also briefly mentioned there. So basically grid view is what we're doing. We're making the grid view apply to just an individual column. So, traditionally this was called datasheet view, which makes your content look like that Excel style bulk edit. You can edit all the fields at one time, copy and paste rows. Well, what this is doing is we're actually just making an individual field, like using that grid view functionality is basically what it is. So yeah, what I'll do is, and I actually did in the presentation, put just a couple little snippets that I actually used for this. And I won't go too much into the code side, but I'll just show you exactly what I'm talking about here. And just I'll pull on the screen here, just a little presentation that I've put, like my own little dashboard. And I've got a couple different examples here, using, like a custom gallery view up at the top. I've got an out of the box list view, and then I've got a document library. So if I was to go into my first one here, which I have these gallery cards set up, I've actually made this approval choice inline editable here. So if I click into it, I can set this to, approve, for instance. But you can see normally this would just be, presenting the data. You would actually have to, maybe go behind the scenes or click it or create a link to open that item, and, actually be taken away from the dashboard. But now, I could just come in and, click my choice that usually we're changing, as opposed to having to come in and see all the fields be editable. It's just the one that's, we would want to change. And just to briefly show you here, if I come into that view, my list view here for that, I've got my little reference here, that I'm using to make that editable. And then if I come down to my next one, so I've got my out of the box list view here. So this could be like a task list, for instance, if you have tasks, action items, that kind of thing. I've just made the status field, editable within the view here, so I could just switch. Similar idea there. And if I go over to my view where I'm pulling that in from, you can see it's just applied to this column. And so if I was to just format this current view, I'm going to go into the settings, format this column. I'm using that snippet there. So this is if you want to apply it to just the field across the board, it's just this little snippet. You don't have to make any custom changes to it. It's just throwing that into that column to make it editable. But then I'll also show you, for my announcement slider here. So that's what this one's called. This is a document library that I use to manage a slideshow that I have. And I have some additional properties. I have an expiration so that it'll fall off after a certain day. And then I have a show on home, which just gives me some more control to hide or show content. So if you have some kind of feature like that, potentially for management, you could add, have a snippet, that allows you just to, look at that and then be able to quickly change, those values. Because sometimes I would say with documents too, people, at least at first, you get a little confused about how to change the properties of a document, just because it's depending on the view of that information. It's may or may not be confusing for some users. So just making it where they can just click into it and change it, without having to go to a grid view. And then I'll just show you that as well. And I've just got this little snippet in here, this little inline snippet that I'm setting for my fields within my custom gallery view here. And to show you what I mean by the grid view. So that's a feature. So that's what I'm referring to, that grid view. So like when I click into there, that grid view, it just it's making all the columns editable. So instead what we're doing is just making one column editable. So that's basically using that same functionality technically. So yeah, you can apply this at all different levels, whether it's just to a column across the board or just to a particular view. So it doesn't, if there are places where you don't want that to appear, you can just apply it to the view as opposed to just making it editable everywhere. So that is, kind of nice. You would have control if you do want to use that and you only want it for like a dashboard page you have, that could be possible. And, you could do that to anything, any editable fields that you have access to, permissions to. You could set this up, across any list or library. As of this moment, it is a, custom code snippet. Unfortunately, they have started making some of these kind of JSON features where you can actually do it through the browser, through the interface without having to do any of that. But at the moment, you'll at least have to do a copy and paste of a snippet, maybe have to make a modification of it. So unfortunately, it does require a little bit of understanding there of how to do that. But, it is always something we could help you with if you think this would be really helpful for you, or could show you how to give you that snippet as well that you could apply to a column. So with that in mind, I think that will cover today's presentation about the list view inline editing. So I will hand this back over. Thank you, guys. Go to the next slide here.
All right, if any of you folks have some questions, you can look on your screen right now to be able to raise your hand. We can open up some microphones, but I do want to remind you, any that may have joined late, next month's going to be a special webinar. It's going to be very business user centric. Anybody that operates and owns content in your intranet, anybody that manages a page, really anybody that actually accesses content, people that might access lists and libraries. You're going to see probably a couple dozen tips, tricks of things right there in the browser with libraries, with lists, with the different things that users can do in different views. So I really encourage you to maybe invite some of your other users. Again, this will be non-technical, but things that I promise you'll walk away with some nuggets you can practically apply as soon as the webinar is over. And Teresa's asking if we can send the JSON snippet. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, any other questions, thoughts? We'll hang out here for a couple more minutes. If not, we'll give you back some of this hour and hope to see you next month. In fact, Dylan, why don't we just put a note to put that JSON snippet on everybody's learning site for the SharePoint Concierge clients as well.
Sure, sounds good.
All right, cool. Okay, everyone, thank you for your time today. We'll see you next month. We appreciate your time.